And we are happy to welcome David Brulotte, who just started as Quebec's Delegate General to New York a few months ago at the end of last summer. Welcome. It's nice to have you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
In New York, New England, and the Mid-Atlantic states, Quebec is one of the region's largest trading partners, and certainly here in our part of New York, the North Country, the biggest trading partner. Your job is to promote that relationship, that trade, economic and cultural ties, government relations between the two countries. And is that trade relationship with the U.S., and in particular with us here in New York and Quebec, is that strong?
It's very strong. And once again, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be back in Plattsburgh. It is very strong to your question, Tom, and it's growing. That's what most people don't realize as much. We think it would be very stable. We're geographically very close. You'd think the relationship is mature and doesn't move all that much. Reality is that our trading with New York or trade and investment relationship has grown every year about 7% for the last 5 years, which is very significant when you compare to other regions of the globe. We trade with New York just north of $8 billion a year, which is very significant, as opposed to other regions of the U.S. or other countries. To give you a sense of scope, Quebec and New York, the state of New York, trade more than France and Germany combined with Quebec. So it really gives you a sense of how important, how deep and intertwined our economies are, and how positive and growing they all are as well.
There are concerns that it's going to be put to the test, the relationship and the trade partnership between Quebec and New York with the new tariffs that are still expected. 25% on all goods coming from Canada into the U.S. How worried are you about the impact that these tariffs could have on businesses in Quebec, the companies that are selling their goods here in the U.S.?
We're worried, very worried. I think that's a statement true for Quebec and for Canada. But I think I'd bring it back to your first comment. We'll be put to the test. So let's see what that test is first. I think that's the main message from our premier and from our government. Let's see what happens. Let's see what those tariffs are. Are they, or will they be on, every sectors? Will there be exceptions? Something that's been floated by the administration in the U.S. Over the last couple of days. And once this is known, we'll see what Quebec and Canada, respond. We've been ready. So our relationships with elected officials, with governments, both local, federal level, state level, are long-standing, and they're very deep and very mutually respectful on both sides of the aisle. So I think this is, at this stage, what we can build on.
Are there fears that a trade war could put a real strain on the relationship, though, with the United States?
There is, and that's true for both sides of the borders. They will have, obviously, an impact on Quebec's economy, on companies, on individuals, but so will it in the U.S. and on individuals' wallets and spendings. Some economists believe there'll be a few thousand more dollars per family and households and expenditures every year if that trade war starts. So our hope and our work right now is to make sure that tariffs do not happen, and if they do, that they're as mitigated as possible, short as possible. And the government has been ready, for weeks and months with either countermeasures or negotiation points with the administration. Our premier has met President Trump in Paris a few weeks ago. Several premiers from other provinces of Canada have as well. So the conversation is happening. We hope that those relationships will help prevail and help our trading relationship grow and continue to flourish.
If, as many suspect, it's a negotiating tactic on the part of President Trump to get Canada to toughen security at the border on illegal immigration, on fentanyl, or perhaps to begin work renegotiating the USMCA trade deal, that's the trade agreement that replaced NAFTA back during the first Trump administration, is the hope that the tariffs may be short-lived and that trade between the two countries will get back on track?
Again, there's still, I think, a bit of speculation on how this could play out, but you're absolutely right, Tom. We see this as a negotiation tactics. Our teams, our government, our civil service has gone through Trump 1.0 as well, so there's been, some learnings from this experience.
If it's prolonged, this could have a significant and detrimental effect on some of the transportation manufacturers who build buses and rail cars in both Quebec and Plattsburgh?
It could, again, to be seen. Some of the clients that are very active here, newly Microbird, Alstom, have operations across the U.S. They have operations, obviously, in Quebec and elsewhere. So I think there's a possibility for them to mitigate this. With our colleagues at Invest Quebec in Montreal and in Quebec City, this is something we've started to map with our companies that have activities here in the U.S. to say, well, if said tariffs are put in place, how is manufacturing going to be displaced? Will it be displaced at all? Will this have an impact on the workforce? Open lines of communications are very active with those companies. And as our premier mentioned, there are several financial plans to be able to mitigate some tariffs if they're put in place and to help the companies. Obviously, our goal and Quebec's role and message from our premier is that our wish and our main concern and work right now is that the tariffs are not imposed, and if they are, that this, you mentioned, as short-lived as possible.